All right.
Okay.
We're rolling.
All right. Well, I'm connecting us, hope, to Facebook. So hold tight, everybody that's on there. Taking its time for a minute. Of course, it did it quickly earlier. Waiting on Facebook. So hold tight, everybody. Welcome. Hope you're all having a great Monday. We are hot up in Lake Placid. It's hot everywhere else too. All right, we're streaming, preview, hold tight. Dylan and I are going to be heading south tomorrow.
Hey.
So pray for safe, uneventful drive. Okay, go live. Go live. All right, we should be getting close. So bear with us, everybody.
Sorry. Looks like we're streaming.
We are going. Awesome. And we've let everybody in so far. Hi, everybody. Welcome. Great to see you. Josh, why don't you jump in and welcome.
Yes, here we go. All right, welcome everybody. July 13th, already more than midway through the year. I hope everybody had a good 4th of July week and weekend. We've got a great episode today. We've got Coach B joining us. Looking very forward to this. So we want to get right to that. Beforehand, just a few housekeeping notes. Wanted to remind everybody to please submit any questions throughout the chat here in the chat area so we can ask those to Coach B at the end. Also, if we want to further the conversation, please go to the Facebook page so we can continue discussing there, as well as link with anybody else on the call that you guys want to chat to. It's a great place to reconnect and network. And besides that, I think we're good. So I'll be looking out for the chat, and we'll give Coach B here as much time as possible to chat with us. So let's open it up. Dylan, Susan.
All righty, here we go. So a friend of mine, Horst Weber, said that now that I'm 69, almost 70, I'm not supposed to say hello or something. I'm supposed to say, it's good to be seen. So the sea is dangerous and its storms are terrible, but these have never been sufficient reasons to remain ashore. Unlike timid souls, intrepid spirits seek victory over those things that seem impossible. They embark on the most daring of all adventures to meet the shadowy future without fear and conquer the unknown. Quick thought starter before we get going is I'm going to give you a recommendation for a book by Carl Eller. Integrity is all you've got. When I do my diligence this week, and I know a bunch of you guys look at my guest, I'll expound a bunch more on the book and whatnot. But I would say this, that in these trying times, it's always something to remember. And seeing a bunch of people reaching out to us this week in the event in spaces, it's tough. I spent some time with Clark Colin. You know, a lot of guys are furloughed and gals, and we're here for you because I think we got to figure out the next how this thing's going to rejigger. So without further ado, Sunshine.
Great. So welcome everybody, and Coach B, as we affectionately call him, down in South Georgia. He went to Wake Forest, and you can tell by his size that I'm not sure what position he played, but he was a football player, but also a very smart one. And so he went on to get his special education certificate, and he has his master's in education leadership. 23 years in education, and we just feel so honored and privileged that we have him at our school system in Irwin County. He's been such a great role model for our young men and women, and he was principal for a while, and we were sad to go see him be assistant superintendent, but we know that he needs to get a promotion for all his great work, and still doing a lot of great work in that role as well. And so, last week we talked about housing. So what we thought we would do over the next few weeks is have people talk about the different aspects of really good housing development programs. And so this week is the E part, or education, and then I see Erin is on with us from Lake Placid Arts Center. So she'll be with us There she is. So she'll be with us next week talking about how art can influence communities in a positive way. So, Coach B, it is all yours.
All right, thank y'all. I appreciate it. Much love out to the Driscolls. We are very, very appreciative of the friendship that we have with you all. And it is an honor to know y'all and to be inside y'all's bubble. Just to give you a little bit of background about myself, I am from a small town in North Carolina called Oakboro. It's east of Charlotte. It used to be about 45 minutes from Charlotte. Now, with the expansion of Charlotte, it's about 30 minutes from Charlotte. I've been married for 27 years to the love of my life. We've been together for over 30 years as we were high school sweethearts, and that's Kerry Billingsley. We have 3 boys. My oldest son is 25. He's actually in his second year, or actually getting ready to start his 3rd year in teaching. I have a 21-year-old Tristan. He's at Georgia Southern. He's a 2nd semester senior at Georgia Southern. And then I have my youngest, and my wife's crying all the time already. He's a senior this year. And hopefully we're going to be able to have some football. He's a football player. And that's Jalen. I've taught for 23 years, as Susan said. I taught in North Carolina for 7 years. I was head football coach. Taught 2 years in Florida. And now I was a SPED teacher as well as head football coach. Taught in Florida for 2 years, and then I was blessed with the opportunity to come to Georgia. Those circumstances, I needed to get my wife back closer to home, so we're about 6 hours from home versus 12 hours. We were in the Panhandle, and every school that I've been in has been a rural area school. Even in the Panhandle, we were outside of Pensacola, but it was a good old country school. It was a big school, but we had those still challenges. I came to Georgia, and I've been in Irwin County the whole time. I came as a SPED teacher. I taught 2 years, got my master's in education leadership, and took over the alternative school / pre-K. And you get a lot of that in rural areas. You'll have some mixed combinations. When you're talking about you're doing the alternative school, and then you go down the hall or a couple halls over, and you have 4-year-olds at pre-K. But that was a great experience. I did that for a year, and then went back to the high school as a assistant principal for a couple of years, and then I was the high school principal for 6 years. And this July, I'm starting in my 4th year over here at the board office as assistant superintendent. Just to kind of give you an idea, some of the challenges and one of the misconceptions I think we have is in a rural schools is, sorry. Okay. I had to use my phone, y'all, so I had to do that. But anyhow, one of the misconceptions is that our kids in rural areas can't compete, or a myth that they can't compete out in the big ocean with the kids who are coming from the bigger schools. I can tell you that where I'm at, our kids in our CTAE programs, which is, as career technical, agricultural, educational, or what we used to call vocational. We have kids, our programs compete nationally. They do really well. We have kids, and I'm just going to talk about a few of them that even in the 6 years that I was principal, we've already had kids who were one of those graduating classes. We have 2 that are doctors already. We have several that are teachers already. And then we have one that is actually, and he's a Georgia graduate, that is a sportscaster out in the West. Our kids do a great job, and they compete. And that's because we do have great teachers who pour a lot into them. And being in a rural area, there still is that little bit of community to where teachers know parents and parents know teachers. It's a constant, but you know, and then we also have people like Susan Driscoll, who went to Irwin County School, who went on to be very, very successful in the business world. And then we also have had 2 students who are in law school right now. So that's just a myth that our kids can't compete or can't get the type of education that's needed to springboard them on into a successful career. Now, I want to talk a little bit about some of the challenges that I faced when I took over as principal, but it's two areas that I really am very, very proud of. One of those was when I took over as principal, our first that class, which I wasn't responsible for that senior class, but our graduation rate was 64%. And over the next 6 years, we were able to gradually, by creating ways of trying to get kids to enjoy being in school and become a part of something. That's really a philosophy that I believe, and it's proven by data, that if you have kids, if they become a part of something, whether it's sports, whether it's band, those CTA programs that I talked about, if they become a part of one of those, they're more likely to graduate. We have worked really hard in trying to identify incoming freshmen, and we actually set up kind of home rooms that if they were already involved in sports, then we put them with particular homeroom teachers. But if they were not involved in anything, then we put them in certain homerooms, and they were with sponsors for some of those different clubs. And that helped grab them as early as we possibly can from day one when they walk through in the high school building. We also got very creative. We started a fishing team, and we're a Class A school. We range from 400 to 500 kids, depending on how many we have coming up. But we started that fishing team because we wanted to reach out to those kids who may not have been very athletically gifted, or musically gifted, or just didn't see really the truth. I wanted to get the good old boy. That's the truth. Now, with that said, we got some good old girls too, and but it's just another something that we wanted to do. But I think the biggest part of what, and I'll give you my last year, our graduation rate was 89%. And what I'm even more proud of, our African-American graduation rate was 90%. And I think that came from kids feeling like they were a part of something. And there's a quote that I love, and one of my areas that I really, disappointments in my life, is I went to Wake Forest, and my wife and we got married when I was a sophomore in college. And Dr. Maya Angelou was a professor at Wake Forest, and I wanted to take the class, but I was afraid to take the class. My wife's like, you need to take it. And I'm like, I'm trying to get out of Wake Forest. So I did not take her class, but one of the quotes that she passed on said was, I've learned that people will forget what you say, people will forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel. And I really believe that that's what we did. We created an environment that our kids felt like they were a part. And the one blessing that I can say about Irwin County, the community, as well as our school board and every superintendent that I've had, our mission has always been about taking care of our kids. Now, sometimes we get twisted in how we get to that point, but that's been a tremendous blessing. So that is how I felt like we really increased our graduation rate, and this continued to move up even since I moved over here. And the second thing that is part of being in, I think, rural areas, we had separate proms when I got here. And I really was like, where have I come to? No disrespect, Miss Driscoll. But I'd never heard of that. I've heard of the homecoming, the two queens or whatever, but that really took me back. And when I became principal, what we ended up doing was start having community meetings with parents, having honest conversations with parents and students, very similar to where we're at now when it comes to race relations, as far as the only way and what's happening is the younger generation is saying to us older generation, hey, we're not going to do this. We know, you know that this is not right. And that's really kind of what we attacked it as, and got a lot of parents to come in and realize that, hey, it's not the kids who want this to continue, it's the adults. And if we know that this is not right, we not only need to have that conversation as a collective group here, but on your one-on-one conversations at home, you need to have that conversation and say, no, that's not right. These kids compete on the fields and courts together. They're in classrooms together. And so they have, we were able to get that implemented, and it's been awesome. It's been very awesome. So those are things, a couple of the challenges. And we did several things to also include expanding on, and again, with trying to keep kids involved. We expanded our cohorts as far as our kids working on college degrees, and having colleges come into the school and offer classes, as well as vocational. We're really taking advantage of the SB2 program, Senate Bill 2, that now kids can cut half of their academic class, required academic classes, and take vocational classes at the tech school. So y'all slow me down or shut me off when I need to stop talking. But, you know, but now as far as rural schools and what the issues that we face really right now, and what's trying, obviously in the COVID-19 era, it's not so much of getting devices available to get to a place where you're one-on-one device to student, but it's just the connectivity within our community. A lot of people just are not capable of getting the internet, not even the issue of not being able to afford, but it's just access. And so anytime I have an opportunity to stress that and preach that to anyone who may have a state legislator that you can talk to, please let them know that's the biggest thing, which I know they know that. It's just a matter of how we're going to get it implemented.
Hey, Coach, brag about the Google picked Irwin County to put connectivity on school buses.
Yeah, so we had a program a couple of years ago where Google partnered with us to put internet on buses, or hot spots on buses, and then provided Chromebooks for every student that rode that bus, as well as paid for the tutors to be on the bus and to work with the students on the way home and to school on different projects on the Chromebook. So we did that for a year. Google donated the Chromebooks to us, but we were not, as one of the challenges resource-wise, we were not able to pick up that bill of what it costs to keep the hot spots on the bus, as well as the amount of money that was paid to those tutors, to be on the bus. But that was an awesome opportunity, and it exposed our kids a little bit longer and got them. And it really helped us when trying to transition, unknown to us, in a situation like we're in now, where we're going to have to utilize some distance learning. So, you know, a couple of things. So the connectivity is one of the things. Resources for true mentoring programs, and I've reached out to churches, retired teachers, to try to get that going. I actually even did a 1 year where we utilized teachers themselves at different schools. So I got high school and middle school to go to the elementary and meet with, mentor some kids. But that's taxing on teachers who would be doing that during their planning period when they really should be doing, working on lesson plans or communicating with parents. So that didn't last more than a year. And being in we're in a rural area that we're not really close to a university. And I use somewhere like Mitchell County or Lamar County, where they have Gordon Lee. They have a college close by. And so you have fraternities and sororities that want to do the volunteering and can come in and help implement a mentoring program or help with a reading program. It's hard when you're in a place as far off of 20 or away from I-75 or away from a university. So that's been a real challenge in not having a boys club. And all kids need it. And that's something that we just continue to work on. Obviously, this past spring and most recently this early summer, we anticipated, as everybody, about a 14% cut to our budget. And in rural areas, we were blessed to the fact that it was only 10%, or as of right now, it's 10%. But when you talk about small rural areas and you talk about a 4 or 5% cut, and 90% of your budget is people, it's hard to not hurt kids and staff, because at some point that's going to end up taking a teacher away. We've been blessed that we have not had to let somebody go, but we may not. The way we usually try to do it, if we're blessed, is we may not rehire something, and then that shifts students and drive class sizes up. So that's some of the things that, because you're in a rural area and you don't have this massive budget that you could just cut away some resources and not people, we don't have that luxury as much at a small place. But the thing that I would ask you all is, if you're from a small area or if you're close to a small area, please reach out and say, hey, how can we help? Whether it's being a mentor, coming in and reading to classes. And the other challenge, and this is the last one that I'll say for an area like us, and this is even true. There's a big difference, and some of you may know where we're at. In Ocilla, there's a big difference in Ocilla and Fitzgerald, which is 9 miles away. There are more professionals. There's more doctors who live in the Fitzgerald area, lawyers, whereas, one of the things I always and still want to try to do is to provide for our students people that are doing different things that they actually can see in front of them, people who look like them, whether it's young white kids, black kids, it doesn't matter, but bringing that reality that, hey, this is somebody that's from Ocilla or that's living here that can be successful and go on and do these things. And that's hard. That's one of the most difficult things of just being able to expose our kids to the different careers. And I'm even talking down to plumbers and welders,
Right. So Josh, you got any questions?
Yeah. So Coach B, we got one here. This is probably a wider question on just COVID and reopening in general, but you had mentioned earlier on, this question's from Thomas Grant, but you said hopefully we'll be able to have some football this year. What do you think it will take to have football this season?
Unfortunately, that has become such a political question in the sense of, the backlash on wearing masks and do we do this or do we do that? But I really don't know. I'll be honest with you. I say that as a parent of a senior, that we hope that we can have it. But in my opinion, if we get anywhere close to that, I think that there's going to have to be some innovative thoughts and work on how are players able to be out there in a way that they can have masks, or people that come to the games that they have to wear a mask. And, I'm not a 100% believer that the mask takes care of it all, but if there's a chance that it stops it, that's what I say. Let's utilize it and try. But I would say I'm 50-50 on whether or not we're going to really get a chance.
I got to build on that a little bit because our experience, we know a lot of the players and whatnot. And in a rural area, and you're a good football player, and we're the defending state champions for our small Class A division. But we had a couple kids, like one kid's going to Florida State, all right, as an example. This is a way for these kids to get full scholarships to big-time institutions. So when you don't have high school football, for us, it's another missed opportunity for some kids. So it's going to be interesting to see all of sports, high school and college, right?
Yeah.
And I can add this to deal. This is from and I would say the majority of principals, particularly those that have been in schools that may have some challenges. As the football season goes, the school year goes, and football has a big impact on how successful your school year. It's amazing what a good football team does, and things done the right way, and it has an impact on that school building. So,
yeah, one thing I'd like to mention too, private schools, I think maybe are better at this because they have to stay in touch with their alumni to get donations back, right? But I think one thing that, we've done a little bit at Irwin County, for example, one of our graduates is one of the very few female partners at KPMG. She went to Irwin County, grew up a mile from me, Oceanfield Women Rock, and she just gave, how many books, Coach?
1,000 books.
She just gave, so through the KPMG Partners reading program, she was able to get them, instead of focusing just on inner city Atlanta, inner city Chicago, that they were able to give back to their home schools. So I think another lesson there is reach out, even if you're a public school, to your alumni and keep them involved in ways and what your challenges are. Okay, we have about 3 minutes. Do we have any other questions?
Yeah, we got one. Yeah, we got another question here from Nancy Bowers. So, Coach B, are universities open to another path to entry requirements other than SAT? Many capable students do not do well on the SAT. And do you know or have any other info on that you might share?
There are some universities that are not even requiring the SAT now. I know this past year, on this graduating class of 2020, they waived the SAT, ACT requirements. Some did because of what all we were going through. So I would think that we're probably, in my Wake Forest. Wake Forest has waived the SAT for years now, so they don't even utilize it as a measure. So I think that's in the midst of what all we're going, there'll probably be more movement towards that.
Oh, wow. And I see one last question, Coach, and we'll cover this one, which relates to me. Because down in South Georgia, when we first had Ignition, we were determined to have it at the farm. And we literally were paying about $1,200 a month to get our internet connection. We had a fiber laid to our house. Just now recently, because of everybody's going to videos, we've got satellite internet, but it's costing us like $450 a month, right? So, Coach, what do you think the reality is of rural areas getting this internet connection?
Wow. I think that, and the one thing that it also is hurting, and like you just said, is small businesses. We have a vineyard here that it can hurt their business really a lot because they do a lot of online. So I think, with that said, I think that until we have the advocates for the small business and the schools that say, hey, this is really, come on now, we are really holding people up and hurting the economy by not getting this access to everyone, I think that will probably be what it takes to move it forward.
Yeah. And okay, I want to do, since Elias is in Brazil, we got to do his question. So it's like, how are the kids getting educated through this pandemic? Here in Brazil, in high-paid schools, kids are having classes through Zoom. However, in public schools, if a kid is in 6th grade, then they're going to have to repeat 6th grade again. So what do you think is going to be, because I'm concerned. Our kids missed 9
Mhm.
weeks of school. We did some
Right.
online. Who knows
Mhm.
what it's going to look like? Do you think that some of our kids will be repeating grades just to make sure they don't fall behind?
In Irwin County, we did not retain any students unless it was a parent's request. But however, what we're going to do, and we're looking at, and actually my meeting that I came out of, we were discussing a number of things, but one of them was our approach when we come back, and there has to be some communication between teachers vertically from grade level to grade level, as well as across the board horizontally as far as math to science to social studies. And really, probably that first 45 days, we're going to be looking at some remediation and conversations about or working with the kids on what they didn't get the year before. Now, where that becomes harder is at the high school level because it's in the credit. And so like my son was in chemistry when this hit. And so he's missed whatever standards he didn't get that last 9 weeks. Now we're trying to, he got a grade and got the credit, but we still need to go back and fill in that gap. And that's something we're going to do when we already started doing on the outside with some of the online platforms. That
Cool.
Great. Well, thank you so much. This has been amazing, Coach. We really appreciate it. And Dill has a final thought.
Final thought, just IYE, in your element. This is where you will truly make a positive difference in the world. Think about what your IYE is, in your element. What is your element? Okay? And I guess for me, we constantly have to think about dedicating this whole thing to the people that are the front line, the teachers, the firemen, the nurses, the front line, real front line people is kind of like, I tend to be saying a lot of prayers that way. And other than that, I guess we're out of time.
So what, Coach B, I'd love to have you back in maybe like 60 days, 90 days to see how it's going.
Yeah.
Getting kids back up to speed and what you've learned. And then next week, we're going to talk about arts. Lake Placid Arts Center has done an amazing job of supporting the community, young and old. So Aaron, we look forward to hearing from your term next week. And
hip, hip, hooray! Hip, hip, hooray!
Hooray!
Hip, hip,
Yeah, for the opportunity.
Hooray!
everybody making a great one. Thanks, Josh. Thanks, all.
Thank you, guys.